Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Talk,
Let's talk.
a podcast where we talk only about the solution, a podcast for the people. We're gonna start by introducing the panel of people.
I am Mike Smith, a resident of the area for 12 years.
Jeffrey Hines. I've been a resident of DeKalb for 9 years.
I'm Diana May Hines. Just been here for 3 years. Basically not from Norway, but originally from Philippines.
Now, we're gonna talk about a lot of issue facing that DeKalb County is facing. First of all, I was at a city hall meeting a few days ago, and they was coming up with a Safe Housing Act. And the Safe Housing Act is holding landlord responsible for any kind of violence or any kind of domestic violence, any kind of issue, drugs selling out of the home and stuff like that. So Mike, what do you have to say about it?
Well, I think it's a good idea because it holds both the tenant accountable, if necessary, and the landlord, because obviously if the landlord is allowing drugs to be sold out of his or her property or her apartment for continuously, it does reflect on the community and does harm the landlord. Whereas if he's trying to do his best to evict the individual, he or she shouldn't be held accountable because they are doing their due diligence.
But do you think that the fine is too excessive?
Well, if I understand, the fine starts out like $500 or $1,000. So it starts out small, so obviously it's a small amount, and works its way up gradually to up to a year of income, if I'm correct, for the landlord. So it's a 3-strike rule, which I think which if it comes to the 3rd strike, the city can overtake the property. So I think it's got good teeth into where it's not too strong right away, that allows them to realize, hey, I'm losing a little money, and they can realize, oh, if I don't do something, I will lose this entire property, and that could be their only source of income.
How do you feel about it?
So, what confuses me a little bit is, so they would have the right to evict tenants early on the lease if they suspect criminal activity?
No, they actually have to be arrested and convicted. They can't just say, oh, I believe that Joey is selling drugs. They have to be convicted, so that it would go through the court system, of which obviously court systems take a while to
They have to investigate.
Yes, so the police would have to investigate. They would have to charge them, and not just based on the charge alone, but the conviction. So
Okay, but if someone's convicted, isn't the state gonna evict them by throwing them in prison?
it varies. See, but you understand, it's the crimes of which that could be committed in the apartment on the landlord's property could be something small that could be solely probational or finable, all the way up to a Class X, which is up to 30 years in prison. So it depends on what the crime is. You know, if they're, for example, if they're consistently partying loudly and a lot of drinking and stuff like this, and like a public nuisance, that would probably be more on the probational or fine type, versus if somebody's got, like, let's say 20 kilos of heroin in their property, that would probably more like or toward the Class X would be prisonable. So it depends on what the offense would be, because it's crime in general, so not just one specific crime.
But what I'm saying too, I think that the city need to be held accountable too for their part, of this new law, this provision, and also landlord need to be all accountable to, because basically, here's the deal: if you gonna rent an apartment, you have to run a background check, and a credit check, and a landlord can refuse to rent you the apartment, based on your criminal record and based on your credit check.
Well, I believe under this ordinance, I believe the attorney that was talking, that she was saying that this would be a human, or be a rights, I don't know if it was that they declined as human rights violation or some kind of individual rights violation. A lot of landlords already run credit checks and or background checks. Some do, some don't. I've come across landlords that do both.
So what if you have a criminal record, then you can't rent?
Depends on the kind of criminal record, though. You know.
So won't this increase homelessness?
Well, and this is where I think that it could, depending on, because right now I believe the city council is going to be voting on it. I forget when, I think the next couple months, but they're voting on it. So obviously, right now you can't challenge it in the courts because there's no law. If it does get passed as a city ordinance, I could see it getting challenged. Will it? I don't know, but I could see it getting challenged, just like everything else. Other bill that gets passed on city, state, or federal level.
But it may not be, overturned or what the courts call it, but it might still increase homelessness and still stand as law.
Well,
Would that be problematic?
I think, but the thing is, there might be exceptions in this law. I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the entire bill and the teeth of it, but I think this is a good step because the 2013 law that existed has kind of run its course, and it's not. In 2013, they didn't have the kind of crime that's like, what was it, a couple months ago, recently in the past, you had something like 60 shots fired in an area on a weekend, like in let's say 800 Ridge Drive or something, somewhere. So that's a lot of shots fired, and I think as they're trying to go after the hard crime, not somebody who had wrote a bad check or something on the small end. The crime that's being, like, not only does it make people feel unsafe, because people should be able to come to their home and feel safe, whether they're a single individual or whether they have kids, family kids, and they all should be able to come home and feel safe. And I think this is, in general, I think this is a good thing they're doing. Could it have some tweaks that need to be made to it? Quite possibly. But I think in general, it's a good thing.
So my concern is that it kind of erases the possibility for second chances. Somebody makes a mistake and now they're labeled and they're going to fail every one of these background checks. And that's the same thing that happens in employment screens. They do background checks. Somebody has any crime, even if it's minor, you have an arrest, you can't work here. And now you have an arrest, you can't live here.
See, I don't think that they're going to. I mean, if Joey had, let's say, had a road back check and they did, a year in probation or something like this, I think this is more targeted at the people that are like do the hard crimes, people that are really trying to.
Let me cut you for a minute. I don't think that they're targeting. I think what they're doing, they try to weed out the bad landlord. You know what I mean? Because you have some landlord that don't have any fire alarm, no smoke detector, cockroaches in running the apartment, some landlord that don't do any repair. I think those landlord is common law. They should not. They should.
just don't care.
They shouldn't care. But there's some good landlord out there that doing everything that they're supposed to do to have a nice, upstanding property. And those people is going to be affected, by this rule. Now I think they need to do more investigation, more study in this law. But I do think that landlord need to be accountable for who they have in their home. What do you think about that? Are you a homeowner?
I'm a homeowner, right? I mean, one day, we'll buy another house and we'll want to lease out the house that we have now. And yeah, the liability is a huge concern. This puts a lot of liability on landlords to foresee things that haven't happened yet.
Well, and that's where the thing is that there's part of the teeth in the bill, or the ordinance, I should say, would also, if you, as a landlord, believe that your tenant is being, like, you found out he or she is charged with, they are selling drugs in their house, or you believe this and you are doing your part to get rid of them because they're not trying to live as upstanding citizens in your house, they're not going to hold you accountable for doing your due diligence to get rid of them. It's the ones that are
Not doing nothing.
not doing anything, because that would be the slumlords.
So basically, what they're saying in the provision is like, so basically, if someone in their home keep repeating domestic violence, bam, 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 newsstand party every day, you know what I mean, and the cops keep coming over there, they contact you as the landlord and say, hey, there's a lot of a newsstand, a lot of complaining, because they have to write a police report, and they contact you, the landlord, and saying, hey, this is what's going on, here's a police report, and you do nothing. You don't go and talk to your tenant, you know what I mean, and try to correct it. And it happened again the second time, right? Then the city have a right to fine you because you're not doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
So basically, the old thing that started is the shooting that they have over there by Ridge. Is a 60 shooting in 6 months. There's a 14-year-old boy that shoot a grown adult. There's a woman gets shot in the face. You know what I mean? There is, I believe there's some scumlord here. There is this lot going on over that side. But I think they need to reconsiderate some of the things that they put in there, you know? Would you feel safe if you have a property in a nice, upstanding neighborhood, right? You run a background check on this person, your credit check, and they qualify for your house, right? And then all of a sudden you get a phone call from the police that, oh, there's a whole bunch of fighting, bottles showing, stuff breaking in your home, right? And then you do nothing about it, right? You go collect your rent next month, and then 2 months later, the same thing happened, right? And then you don't do nothing about it. They call the police come to you, and you went over there to check your house, right? And then there is big old hole in the wall. You know what I mean? Neighbors is, waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. If you're not doing something to warn that tenant, like saying, hey, you know what? You need to cut it out, because if you don't, we're going to evict you. You know what I'm saying? Give them a written warning or something like that. I think it would cover the landlord too, to be more protect their home. I think it would protect their home. That's what I think. But I also think that it would also cause homelessness too, a lot of homelessness, because, like they have this thing they call a 30-day rules, 30 law rules that I think they need to get rid of that. Because if you live in my home for a week or 2 weeks, right, and I want to get rid of you, I can't. I have to go the legal way to get rid of you. I had to evict you. You see, in this way, I think that's the problem right there. That 30-day stuff.
You got a lot of friends that crash at your place for a month?
Not friends. I'm just saying, like if I have a family, a little uncle or a cousin, that come to my home, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I don't have nowhere to go. I'm gonna let him stay for a month. I may let him stay for a year.
And one thing I thought was really good in the city hall meeting was one of the aldermen. She talked about maybe a way to financially help the landlords, a financial incentive on like security cameras or such to, one, not only would they be deterrents, because if you got the video evidence of individuals doing this, but also helps them, gives them video evidence of what did happen. And I think because depending on how many properties you own, cameras can get real expensive. So if maybe it's not so much the service, because some of them are or wireless or whatever, but the cost of the cameras can get quite expensive. So if maybe the city can put it in the budget to help offset some of that cost for it, I think that would help deter some of the crime too.
The city can help me. I have ADT. I have cameras everywhere in my house, so I need some help. Hey, I'm right here. You know what I mean? And I pay for it too. So hey, Pause didn't help me. Yeah, but this is a good topic, though. You know what I mean? Like, it is. I think that they're trying to make DeKalb the next Silicon Valley of Illinois. Just like, you know what I mean? Like,
Because Facebook moved here.
yeah, Facebook is here. You know, Amazon is here. You know, all these different companies. So basically, I think what they're trying to do, they're trying to weed out, you know, all these people that they think is, you know, not. I think, you know, that because the mayor said, I am tired of people, you know, ruining my city, ruining my town. You know, there's a gunshot every day. There's drugs that he said that he got on a drive along with the police, and he couldn't get from one floor to the next floor, you know, because the cops keep telling him, you got to keep moving, because they're scared that they're going to get shot. They're scared that somebody's going to attack them. You know what I mean? I think they're just weeding out I don't know, but part of it I believe in, and part of it I think need to get worked. What I'm saying is, like, people need to be aware of, you know, like, their surrounding. You know, people need to be aware of what's going on in their neighborhood. I think the police need to be policed more better. You know what I mean? The police need to go to the community and you know, be a part of the community. You know, that's
Well,
what I think.
one thing I didn't notice in this was crime-free housing. There wasn't. I mean, there was the police chief, I believe Bird's his last name, said we can't police our way out of this, and he's right. But we didn't mention anything about the biggest factor that I think would, of any factor out there that would help eliminate a lot of this, is a neighborhood watch. Because if you're involved with your neighbors and talking to them and keeping an eye, like my neighborhood, all our neighbors know whose car belongs to who, and if a car is out or there too long that doesn't belong there, especially late, we tend to notice it. And if that's something that they can do without having to pour a lot of resources, having the neighbors get to know each other and get to know, you know, whose car is who, because it would keep a lot of people at bay if people realize, hey, this neighborhood knows each other.
But the neighborhood that they're trying to target, though, ain't nobody gonna be on a neighborhood watch, because people's gonna feel like they're snitching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The neighborhood that they're targeting. If you're talking about like an upscale neighborhood, like, you know, where people have, you know, the nice home and, you know what I mean, good jobs, that's different. You know what I mean? People are gonna watch out for each other. But when you're talking about, you know, on the other side of town, you know what I mean, where they try to target, because over there and on the Glidden, they push down the whole old movie theater. They move all those people, all those shops, you know, those landing, all those shops is gone. You know what I mean? I think that's the side of town that they're targeting. They want to change that side of town because that's why they're saying that the most shooting is. You know what I mean? So over that side of town, you ain't gonna find no neighborhood watching that side of town. You know what I mean? I think they need to start teach people more, you know, what to look out for. You know, that's what I think. But you know.
And I think citizens, they don't have the investigative skills. They just citizens kind of make presumptions and, oh, this is suspicious, I'm going to call the police. And that creates a lot of additional police encounters that are maybe not necessary.
That's true. That's true. You know, like,
Or doesn't that increase discrimination? People say, "Oh, well, there's a black guy in the white neighborhood.
Well, I think it comes back to
That's
neighborhood
suspicious."
watch. I think it goes back to neighborhood watch, but I mean, you could interact with your neighbors without like saying, "Hey, did you see a car out there?" Because you, as a neighbor, if you interact with your neighbors, you tend to, you know, like in the casual stuff, you know that Joey has a red car or a black car and things. Something you'll notice things that stick out because they don't belong there because they're never here.
And I guess the largest thing that I don't really get about this bill, or it's a bill, right? Yeah, is the overlap. So landlords are not supposed to initiate eviction until a conviction has through the courts has happened.
No, they can't be. I don't think they can be forced to. They could, I think, beforehand, but because landlords have the authority to be able to evict people. The onus on this is that if landlord A is trying to take out landlord or tenant A because they're devaluing property or they're doing things that aren't as substandard as they can, it's that it would be hard to hold the landlord accountable if the tenant has been convicted. But the landlord seriously could, if he or she wanted to, evict him beforehand.
But now the way the old bill is, they can't.
But don't they have a contract, right?
But that's where the part of that contract
Yeah.
would include this crime-free housing that would give the landlord more teeth to be able to evict a person if they wanted to, because of that. But they wouldn't be required to before the conviction, but they could.
So it will enable landlords to initiate eviction proceedings based on suspicions. You don't
Yeah.
see? Do you see a problem with that?
Well, I think they have some kind of obviously evidence, because a landlord, just like in a civil, an eviction case is a civil case, and civil and criminal are similar, that you have to have some kind of evidence. I just couldn't come and say, I'm evicted by a tenant because I believe there's a lot of drugs in there. The judge would be like, well, where's the proof? But whereas if the cops busted the tenant with 10 pounds of heroin, the landlord or the judge is going to say, look, this is reasonable. You've got the evidence from the police report that says so. So there you would have to have some minimal evidence, just like you would in any other civil case.
So, for instance, if there's a domestic violence case and the cops call, wife is back high, blue high, you know what I'm saying, bloody and stuff like that. They find a report, and the person go to court, get convicted. Then the police report would hold up for the landlord to evict the person. You get what I'm saying? It makes sense, right? But what he's saying though is like, hey, what if the person is not convicted? It's still uncircumstantial evidence. You know what I'm saying? But it still happened.
A police report wouldn't necessarily wouldn't be, especially an arrest wouldn't be circumstantial. More it could be, but generally it isn't. So they would hold weight in an eviction court. If they are just like civil cases, other civil cases where there is some preponderance of evidence, you could proceed. It wouldn't be just, I believe this, or Jane the neighbor said this. If you has for example, if you're as a landlord, if you have cameras and so and the cameras show evidence of said illegal activity happening, you could use that evidence just like if there was a police report. But just because the neighbor had said it, because that's going to be he said, she said, so the evidence would have to be strong enough that it would withstand an appeal, because a judge is not going to say, oh, Jane said this, so I can, and it wouldn't even matter if the witness was even law enforcement judge or whatever. They would, because it's the he said, she said, so the evidence would need.
We're going to take a break and we're going to come back with our next guest. So we'll be back in 2 and 2. Let's talk.
Originally Max Effects and Ginger
Only you alone. Only you alone. Only you alone. Can make my heart sing. Only you alone. Only you alone. Only you alone. Can make me feel sweet things. Oh, baby.
Baby girl.
It is Saturday night. The moon is
sing, only you alone. Can make me feel sweet thing, only you alone. Can make my artist sing, only you alone. Can make me feel sweet thing. From the first time to see a girl down on the spot. Looking so sexy and you looking so hot. Have a nice slippers and a nice lower front. Your nice brown hair does drive me to the top. My imagination, yes, it running wild. Can't help myself from acting like a child. Around you got my heartbeat non-stop. Sweaty, sweaty palm, and me just won't stop.
Only you alone. Only you alone.
Welcome back to Let's Talk,
Let's talk.
a podcast where we talk only about the solution, a podcast for the people. Our next guest is
I'm Butch. I'm a certified USCCA instructor, and I own Bullock Creek Ranch. In my business, I am certified instructor for concealed carry. It's a 16-hour class. 15 of it is classroom, 1 hour of range time for qualifying. I also teach intro to handguns, basic handguns, intro to rifles, basic rifles. I also teach certified instructor. I also teach how to protect yourself, whether it be at home, out in public, or at work or church.
So if I have a gun at home, right? What's the proper way to secure my gun from my child?
From your child, okay. The proper way to secure your firearm is, of course, you have a safe, unloaded, a locked safe. Do not, under any circumstances, let your kids know, the combination, where the key is and everything, because, part of your mind is want to know. And so there's many different ways, ammo separate from your firearms. And the many different kinds out there. You got key safes, you got biometrics, combinations. There's all different kinds. Any store that you go to, whether it be your big box sporting goods stores, your local ranges or gun shops and everything, they have all kinds there, and they can help you as far as what you need.
I think that's great. Can you give us a little detail on how somebody who's new to this experience better prepare themselves, not just mentally with the knowledge you need, but with how to physically handle a firearm?
Someone who's taking a class for the first time,
Yes.
intro to handguns. My intro to handguns, there are no firearms or no ammos allowed. You can bring your firearm, but no ammos allowed in the class at all. And I mean, not in the firearm itself or in a bag, but no, your ammo is out in your car because it's not going to use it. Okay, you will learn the 4 fundamentals are always good to know. Is treat all firearms as if they're loaded. It doesn't matter if it's real or fake. You treat it all the same. You got to get that mindset. And if you don't get the mindset, then you failed right there. So always treat every firearm, whether it's real or not, as if it's loaded. Okay? Number 2, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to use it. Do not point your firearm at anything you're not willing to destroy. And 4 is, if you do have to use it, know what's behind it and around. Because every time you fire, you are responsible for what just came out of your firearm.
So that means just don't pick up a firearm and just fire it just to fire.
Exactly. Or don't pick it up and wave it around. Hey, look what I found.
What are some common misconceptions for people who want to get to learn how to possess one, to fire it properly, and to handle it properly, but they're afraid because of the stigmas of it, or not sure what was real and what was not?
Well, usually a lot of people who never fired it, is the noise. Okay, they're afraid of the noise, and they're afraid of, we call it recoil. When you're firing, when you fire it, it's gonna kick up. Well, you gotta hold it properly. You don't just, go bang and all of a sudden, no, you gotta hang on to it. Yeah, the hardest part is getting over the sound. It is loud. It is loud. It doesn't matter if you're indoors or outdoors, it is loud. So you gotta wear proper, hearing protection, eye protection.
What about breathing techniques? Would that be something that they would need to learn to deal with as they're practicing on the range?
Breathing techniques does come in. I mean, you got to keep calm. Everybody, when they're at the range, they always treat it as, how fast can I go? No, you gotta keep calm and take your time. Breathe, calm your nerves, and just when you're ready. And also, practice, practice, practice.
So what the word I'm looking for? What
Circumstances?
What circumstances a person should use a gun? Because people just use gun right now. This is like is just like they use gun just like it's just a toy. Just shoot like what I mean like.
A firearm is for protection. But you do not use your firearm as the last resource. The last resources. First off, you want to get away. You don't, somebody walks up to you, or walks towards you, say, hey, back off. If they don't back off, you're backing off. Try to get away from de-escalate it before it gets out of hand.
Now, here's a question for you. As a concealed carry weapons owner, you obviously can carry it in public. What are some a mindset that you have that could help the average person, even if they don't own a firearm in public, that would help them to keep themselves safe as possible?
What do you mean by that?
So, like, if let's say you want to go to Chili's, what are some, when you walk in there, what are ways that that you can see, you could put yourself the best light if something is to go down, that you can escape, or you can.
Okay. One of the things that you really need to start thinking about is, first off, a lot of people these days are into this. You see them walking around doing this, traffic, school, whatever, okay?
Let me stop you there for a minute. When you mean this, because
A phone.
because we do
They're
audio
distracted.
and video, so
They're
we want.
distracted,
Okay.
okay? They call these smartphones, I call them dumb phones. Because people are relying on these for everything. They got their head in here, not paying attention to what's going on around them. They become easy targets. Okay, like you say, you go into a restaurant. The first thing I do, it doesn't matter if I'm carrying it or not, okay? First thing I do when I go in is, I'm not making it obvious that I'm turning my head, looking at the surroundings. The first thing I do when I come in is I'm looking for exits. That's the first thing I do. I look at the people in the restaurants, where they're sitting, how they're sitting, and the way they're sitting. I always pick an area close to an exit. I never sit in a booth. I always sit at a table. Because if anything does happen, you can't get out of that booth fast enough. You can get away from a table. And not only that, you can take that table and you can flip it for protection. I see what's around that I can use for protection in that. And you want to make the fast getaway. So that's what I look at. I don't try to have my back to people. you know, people behind my back. I want them in front. I want to know what's going on.
But people don't like guns, right? Like me, I don't like guns, but if I wanted to get a gun to protect my property, how someone would get in touch with you for your class? Because I wouldn't just buy a gun because, you know what I mean?
Well, first off, I mean, Illinois is one of 4 states that a FOID card. You need to get a FOID card, okay? That's the first thing you gotta do is, even though we have the Second Amendment that says we have the right to protect ourselves, but you need a FOID card. And a FOID card is only for purchasing firearms, purchasing ammo, and transportation. That's it. That's the only thing a FOID card is really for. Okay? Now, once you have that, you know, and you do get a firearm, okay? My intro to firearm classes, you do not need a firearm, okay? If you don't have one, that's fine, because I'm teaching you the introduction to it, and I do have some firearms that you can hold, but you're going to know how to hold it first before you get it. And then you get comfortable with it and everything. And then, you know, you build from there. If you don't like firearms, that's fine. There's other ways to protect yourself.
Do you teach those other ways too? Do you teach those other ways to protect yourself?
I do not, but I can put you in contact. I mean, you can go to your local gym. There's people who will teach, you know, karate, hand-to-hand, you know, any kind of self-defense.
Okay.
So there's more ways to protect yourself than one of the other main thing is, well, okay, you said at home. How do you protect your home
Oh, do I protect my home? I have.
so your family and child are safe?
Well, I do have ADT security alarm. I got a baseball bat too, a big baseball
Okay.
bat. So I have a shadow security on each one of my window. I have a video camera on each door.
Okay.
You know, in my living room. So that's my kind of security, right?
Okay. Let's go to your doors first. The screws for your hinges, the screws for your deadbolt, the plate in the door. How long are those screws? About maybe an inch.
Maybe an inch.
You know how easy it is to kick that door open? You can have that door open in less than 30 seconds by kicking it in. I live in an apartment complex, so I'm in an apartment. First thing I did, I took those screws out and I replaced them with 3-inch screws. They go into the joists of the deal, not the door frame. So that little extra couple inches is into the frame. You just now made it stronger. Deadbolts normally come probably about that big when you
about a
have
half
the
inch.
lock and go in. Get longer ones.
You hear that, my friend? You're a homeowner.
Get longer deadbolt locks
A longer one.
because it goes in farther and is that much more secure. I'm not sure what the name of these bars are called, but they're adjustable. You take it, put it under the doorknob to the floor, and that helps secure it. They even have ones that you can get when you go to hotels and put it in there for the hotels and everything, you know, practice there. Patio doors, you know, put the stick or a metal bar down below, but also get one that goes halfway up the door and put one in there because that keeps it from rocking. And it's real easy to open those. If you don't have the money, you can do a little at a time, get window film and put on your windows. So if they do happen to break a window, it's only going to shatter. It's not going to break to where they can get it. You want to deter as much as possible on that. That's some of the, lower stuff for protecting yourself at home too.
You seem like a very knowledgeable man, and I appreciate you telling me that, because now I gotta get me some bars, for my door, because
I think it's been very knowledgeable, the stuff that he's teaching us and the audience, because I believe that people well informed are more or less likely to take advantage of it, and his knowledge will help make the world, the community, even safer.
So basically, if someone want to learn anything about safety, to protect themselves, they can call you and you'll be able to recommend
Yes,
some kind of class if you don't
right.
provide it. How can they contact you?
They can contact me at bulletcreekranch.org. That's my website. And it is under construction because I'm revamping some classes. And if you don't see anything that you're interested in, there is an email. Just email me and I'll look at it and that. Also, you can also call me at 815-570-9405. That's the phone number, and leave a voicemail, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can on that, because I do work during the day, so I will get back, as fast as possible on that.
And so that he's a certified instructor.
Certified in concealed carry and also home defense. Or they call it counter-mass terrorism. I call it home defense, but it's, public work, churches, and stuff.
So basically, do you ever go to any company or to teach them how to secure the company if there's a threat or anything like that? Do you do that?
I have contacted some, and they said not at this moment.
But you can do that.
I can do that, yes.
So I had a question. So in a situation, so when you're doing concealed carry,
Yes.
and you're in a situation where you need to, dispatch the firearm into some threat
At last resort.
as a last resort, how do you keep yourself from being perceived as being a threat by other concealed carriers and police?
Well, if you do use your firearm for protection, the first thing to do is you call 911, let them know what's going on, what happened, who you are, what you look like, okay? So this way they have some, aspect on, because when these guys come to a scene after something happened, it's chaos. They don't know what's what. They're not getting the full information from dispatch. Dispatch just says, this happened at this place.
There's a guy with a gun, and then they see you, and now
Exactly.
you're in trouble.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, you definitely put your firearm down, unload it, because this way if somebody was to come by or whatever, well, it's empty and all that, but put it down, do everything the officer tells you, and just let things go. Yes, you're going to be handcuffed. Okay, that's a give me, because again, they have to assess and evaluate what's going on. Okay, you're going to be treated just like any other criminal. Okay.
So basically, you're saying that give as much information about what happened so the cops that respond to the scene know exactly. So basically, it's not so much chaos going on. You know what to expect, who you are.
Correct, but like I said, they're not going to get all the information from the dispatcher. Okay, you're calling a call center. Okay, you're telling them what's going on. It's all being recorded. So you are giving them all the information, even though the officers don't have it or they don't get it in time, but it has been recorded. Okay, but the first thing is, do everything they tell you to do. Okay, and then you let your lawyer take care of that.
Well, we're gonna thank you very much to come out. It's good
Thanks for having me.
educational. Tell the people one more time how to get in touch with you.
Okay, you can go to my website, bulletcreekranch.org, or you can email at info@bulletcreekranch.org, or you can call at 815-570-9405.
Good. So in that case, we're done. We're out of here. Thank you for all the guests that was here today. Thank for all my panel that, this is a great show. Again, thank you all. Let's talk. We out of here.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk about the solution. Let's talk.